Before we get into this story, I've got a gift for you. I've written an exclusive Wild West tale you won't find on YouTube, and it's completely free. Just check the link in the description or the pinned comment to grab your copy. Now saddle up and let's ride straight into today's story. Before we dive in, pause for a moment and tell me something. Where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Maybe it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France. Don't just watch quietly, drop a comment below and let's see how far this story reaches across the world. Now, lean in and let's begin. The dragonflies were the size of hawks. Their wings shimmered like stained glass in the dawn light, beating the air over a swamp that stretched forever. Giant millipedes coiled beneath roots the size of houses. The world pulsed with life so thick it was almost a sound, a heartbeat of wings, legs, and leaf. And then, the air shivered. A hiss moved through the forest. Every creature froze. The air had always been rich, thick, alive, but suddenly it was thinner. Something invisible had shifted. The sky's breath was fading. One colossal dragonfly, Meganura, dropped mid-flight, wings twisting in the heavy air. It struck the marsh with a sound like wet cloth, legs twitching. The smaller creatures scattered. But the air didn't come back. The breath of the world was dying, molecule by molecule. Beneath the canopy, a creature watched from a nest of vines. It had never known fear. Now its spiracles, tiny holes in its sides, flared desperately. The unseen killer wasn't a predator. It was the sky itself. And in that stillness, the forest began to choke. Thousands of years later, a human woman would uncover the truth buried in stone and realize the death of the insects was not just history, it was prophecy. The museum was silent except for the rain tapping the skylight. Éliane Moreau stood alone in the dim research wing, a coffee gone cold beside her elbow. Before her lay the fossil, a dragonfly the size of her forearm, wings perfectly pressed in ancient shale. It looked as if it had died yesterday, not 300 million years ago. She brushed the stone gently with her glove, tracing the thin ridges of the wing. "You shouldn't exist," she whispered in her soft lion accent. The specimen had been dug from a layer of rock younger than any giant insect should have lived. Her colleagues called it an anomaly. She called it an omen. On the desk beside her, a faded photograph leaned against her notebook. It showed a little girl missing one front tooth, holding a net and chasing butterflies in a summer field. Éliane didn't look at it directly anymore, but she felt its presence the way you feel a scar under your sleeve, tender, electric. Her daughter had loved insects. "They'll outlive us," she'd said once. But now the insects were dying and Éliane was digging into their graves. She turned off the desk lamp, meaning to leave, but something caught her eye. Inside the rock's split surface, a faint shimmer ran through the veins, not reflection but movement, like air trapped and trembling. For a heartbeat she heard wings. A whisper. Then silence. Éliane stepped back, pulse quickening. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. She didn't know it yet, but she had just woken something that had been waiting since the day the sky stopped breathing. The next morning, Éliane was in the lab before dawn. The fossil sat under a containment dome, lights angled like interrogators over its ancient surface. Overnight, sensors had recorded a faint chemical anomaly, a gas pocket inside the shale, sealed for hundreds of millions of years. The readings didn't match oxygen, nitrogen, or anything known. She leaned closer to the console. "So you've been breathing something else," she murmured. "Something we lost." Her assistant, Malik, appeared behind her holding 2 coffees. "You really didn't sleep?" he asked. He was younger, eyes bright with curiosity and worry. "You think this gas explains the size?" Éliane nodded absently. The air then was rich. It fed them, made them giants. But this, she tapped the screen. "This shouldn't exist. It's like the air itself mutated." Malik hesitated. "You're shaking." "I'm remembering," she said, then caught herself. "Forget it." They began extraction. As the needle punctured the shale, the monitor flared red. Pressure surged. Éliane froze. The gas ignited briefly but didn't burn. Instead, a blue glow pulsed inside the chamber, spreading like veins of light. The fossil's wings quivered. Then, impossibly, the shimmer vanished, leaving only a faint scent, metallic and sweet, like rain after fire. "Did you see that?" Malik whispered. Éliane nodded slowly. Her voice trembled. "It wasn't gas, Malik. It was breath." She didn't sleep that night either. In her dreams, she stood in a forest of enormous ferns under a choking sky. And she could hear it, the same whispering wings she'd heard in the lab, rising, fading, begging for air. The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. Éliane hadn't left the museum either. She said it was because of the work, the anomaly, the data, the fossil, but Malik knew better. Grief had roots deeper than duty. That night, when the last security light dimmed, Éliane returned to the containment dome. The fossil looked different, duller somehow, as if part of its shimmer had died. She leaned close, whispering, "Tell me what you are." Her breath fogged the glass, and for an instant she saw her reflection shift. Trees where there should be walls, moonlight where there should be lamps. Then came the sound, faint, rhythmic, like distant wings. The lab seemed to ripple. Her hand trembled as she touched the dome, and the world fell away. She stood barefoot on wet moss. Towering ferns arched overhead, their tips dripping with golden dew. Something vast glided past, the shadow of a dragonfly as long as a man. She could feel the weight of the air, thick, alive. She gasped, lungs fighting it, and the sound echoed with the cry of something ancient dying far away. Her daughter's voice broke through the rustling leaves. "Mommy, why do they die?" Éliane turned, no one there. Just a single dragonfly resting on her palm, its glassy eyes reflecting a world that was ending. Its wings folded. It wasn't afraid. Then a flash. The air convulsed. Every creature around her spasmed and dropped, lifeless. The forest exhaled one final time. Éliane screamed and woke on the lab floor, the fossil cracked beside her, and on her palm, a smear of iridescent dust glowing faintly blue. Éliane didn't go home. She sat in the corner of her lab, lights off, the fossil cracked open beside her like a coffin. The faint blue shimmer had vanished, but she still felt it under her skin, an ache just beneath the ribs where breath becomes meaning. Malik arrived mid-morning and froze. "You're bleeding," he said. Her palm was streaked with blue lines that pulsed faintly, branching like veins. She hid it quickly. "Chemical burn," she lied. He didn't believe her but didn't press. He placed a data slate on the desk. I ran comparisons. The compound inside that pocket, it's not just oxygen, is bonded with something organic. Like memory. Éliane looked up. Memory? Neural patterns. It's as if the air itself once carried living information. And it's dying off, same pattern we're seeing now in the insect population collapse. The modern air is losing its memory too. The words hit her like a blow. The air dying again. Not just once in prehistory but now. Her daughter's asthma, the attack that had taken her 2 years ago, returned to her mind like thunder. Air. Breath. Loss. She stared at the fossil. The insects didn't fall because they grew too big, she whispered. They fell because something stole the air's soul. Malik frowned. You mean a pathogen? She shook her head slowly. No. Something thinking. That night, as the city slept, Éliane stood on the museum's balcony, the wind biting her face. She looked at the glowing skyline and wondered how many times the earth had breathed, loved, and lost, and how many times humans had been the ones to pull the breath away. The storm was coming. And in the thunder, she swore she heard wings. The next morning, Éliane woke to the sound of sirens echoing through Paris. The air outside shimmered with a strange haze, like the city was breathing smoke that wasn't its own. On every rooftop, pigeons circled erratically, panicked, colliding, dropping from the sky. She rushed into the museum. Malik was already there, pale and trembling. You need to see this. He pointed at the atmospheric readings. Oxygen levels had dropped overnight, not by much but enough to set off alerts. It's like something's eating the air again, Éliane, he whispered. The same pattern from the fossils. She stared at the data. The same microscopic molecular signatures. The same breath stealers. The same invisible plague that once wiped out the titans of the prehistoric world. Only this time it wasn't isolated. It was global. Malik traced a trembling finger over the hologram. These weren't just insects, he said. They were guardians of balance. They filtered the air, recycled memory, kept the world alive. When they died, the planet lost its lungs. Éliane felt the words scrape through her soul. Guardians. Protectors. Extinct because something decided the sky belonged to it alone. That night, she drove to the cliffs of Etretat, the same place she once brought her daughter to chase fireflies. The wind there felt thinner, harsher. But in the distance, beyond the Black Sea, flashes of blue light danced in the clouds, not lightning but wings. She held her breath. The world was fighting again. The same war the insects once fought. And she was the only one left who could understand their message. A voice in the wind, soft, childlike, whispered her name. Éliane. She turned, heart hammering. No one was there. Only the sky, trembling like a wounded creature. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled, but beneath it she heard something older. The sound of wings gathering. And for the first time she wasn't sure which side humanity was on. That night the wind never rested. It moved through the cracks of Éliane's apartment like a whispering ghost. Every sound felt deliberate, every breath like a sentence half-spoken by the dead. She sat by the window with the fossil shard in her hands. Its blue veins pulsed faintly again like a heartbeat. The lab scanners couldn't explain it. It wasn't radiation nor bioluminescence. It was communication. When she leaned closer she heard it, faint, rhythmic, like air passing through lungs that no longer existed. The sound was layered. One voice, then many, each word stretched by centuries. And beneath them a child's laugh. Her daughter's laugh. Her vision blurred. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "This isn't real." But the fossil grew warmer in her palm. The light flickered faster. A rush of images flooded her mind. A world blanketed in mist, vast forests trembling as colossal insects took flight, their wings glimmering like stained glass under an alien sun. The air itself sang, carrying fragments of memory from every creature that had ever lived. Then came the shadow. A darkness crawling across the sky, invisible but suffocating. A parasite that devoured not just oxygen but thought. The insects fought it. They screamed through the air, wings thrumming like war drums. But they failed. Their fall wasn't death, it was silence. Éliane gasped and fell to the floor, clutching her head. Malik burst in moments later. "Éliane, what happened?" She looked up at him, trembling. "They didn't just die," she whispered. "They were erased. Every memory, every breath, wiped out of the air itself." Malik frowned. "Erased by what?" She stared at the fossil, the faint blue glow reflecting in her eyes like tears. "By something that's learning to do the same thing again. Through us." The room went still. Even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere deep inside the fossil, the whisper came again, soft, almost loving. "Breathe, Éliane. Remember us." And for the first time, she realized that the voice wasn't speaking to her. It was speaking through her. The days blurred into one long twilight. Éliane stopped sleeping. Her apartment was filled with scattered fossil samples, data chips, and sketches of insect wings drawn like constellations. Malik had been gone 2 days, or maybe 3, hunting for someone who could verify the impossible, that air might remember. Elaine's hands trembled as she activated the oxygen resonance scanner. She'd modified it herself, linking it to her daughter's old breathing monitor, the one from the hospital. Every inhale, every exhale, now echoed through the fossil's pulse. The waveform danced. The fossil answered. And the air began to speak. At first, it was sound, fragments of vibration forming primitive shapes. Then came images, forests collapsing, skies dimming, insects falling like rain. The great dragonflies and beetles writhed, their lungs collapsing in slow agony. Not because oxygen had vanished, but because something had changed it. Something living within it. The air was not empty. It had never been. "Malik," Éliane whispered to the empty room. "We didn't inherit the earth from the creatures before us. We inherited their fear." The realization cracked her voice like glass. Every breath humans took was built from the same atmosphere that had once fed those giants, but twisted, reshaped by the unseen parasite that had starved them. Evolution wasn't just survival of the fittest. It was adaptation to an invisible predator. She grabbed her daughter's hospital file, tears blurring the words. Low oxygen saturation. Lung failure. Unknown etiology. It wasn't genetic. It wasn't random. It was the same force. The same silence. The light in the fossil dimmed. The air around her grew heavier, thicker, as though she were underwater. Then, faintly, her daughter's voice echoed again. "Mehmet, it's inside you now." The scanner flickered wildly. Oxygen levels plummeted. The window glass warped, bending inward. The city's nightlights outside blurred into streaks of orange and blue. Éliane stumbled backward, gasping, clutching her chest. Her lungs burned. And then the whisper returned, not from the fossil this time, but from the air itself, circling her like smoke. "Breathe, human. You are the last memory of the first world." The fossil cracked open in her hand, releasing a thin mist that shimmered in the dark. It drifted upward, merging with her breath, and in that instant, Éliane saw everything. The fall of the insects wasn't extinction. It was assimilation. Every breath since then, every human life, was borrowed air. The first sign came from the mountains. Miners in Valducil reported strange blue vapors rising from the stone, the same color as the veins in Elaine's fossil. A week later, pilots flying over the Alps radioed in about shimmering clouds that made their instruments fail. And then people started hearing the voices. At first, it was a whisper when they breathed too deeply, like wind through reeds. Then it became clearer, familiar. Some swore they heard dead relatives. Others claimed the air was warning them, telling them to stop breathing. Malik found Éliane in the lab, her eyes red from exhaustion. "It's spreading," he said, slamming down his tablet. "Every major city is reporting oxygen disturbances. The air composition's shifting, like it's waking up." Éliane didn't look up. "It's not the air. Just, we've been carrying it for millennia." He frowned. "Carrying what?" She turned, holding the cracked fossil. "A memory. A consciousness that feeds on awareness. The more we study it, the more we awaken it." Outside, sirens wailed. The world was panicking. People were locking themselves indoors, terrified of inhaling. Governments blamed pollution, bioweapons, anything they could name, but not this. Malik whispered, "You said your daughter's lungs failed without reason. What if she felt it first?" Elaine's eyes filled with tears. She did. She heard it. She said the air was heavy, that it didn't want her. She touched the fossil gently. "And now it wants us all." The lights flickered. The hum of the machines deepened to a low, resonant drone. A strange mist began seeping from the air vents, faintly luminous, like fog lit from within. The same whisper filled the room again, now layered with countless voices, speaking in unison. "Remember us." The computers glitched. Screens showed flashes of prehistoric landscapes, colossal wings, fallen forests, and then faces. Human faces. Millions gasping for air. Each breath forming a single word, "again." Malik stumbled backward. "It's rewriting the atmosphere." Elaine's expression hardened. "No. It's rewriting us." She grabbed the emergency oxygen tank, twisted the valve, and inhaled deeply. Her lungs burned like fire. The whisper grew louder, not outside her body this time, but inside. "Every breath you take," it said, "is a story retold." And in that moment, Éliane understood. Humanity's oxygen was memory. Every inhale carried echoes of the past. Every exhale, a fragment of what would come next. The air was remembering, and memory was running out. The world had gone quiet. No planes crossed the sky, no cities roared. The air shimmered faintly everywhere now, visible, alive, breathing through the ruins of civilization. The mist had become the new dawn, gliding over oceans, threading through mountains, whispering its hymn, "Remember us." Éliane stood alone on a cliff above the French valley where the first fossils had been found. The world below was drowning in light, a soft, pulsing glow like a heartbeat. Malik's body lay behind her, pale and still, his last breath frozen in the air like glass. He had tried to stop it, to fix the air. But how do you fix the soul of a planet? She clutched the fossil fragment to her chest. It was no longer blue but white-hot, like the core of a star. Inside it, she could hear the voices of the ancient insects, and beneath them, her daughter's laugh. The wind rose, swirling around her. It was warm, almost tender. And in that warmth came the truth she had been chasing all along. The giant insects hadn't fallen because of oxygen loss or climate change. They had fallen because their memories became too heavy for the air to carry. Every creature that lived, every dream ever dreamt, left a trace in the atmosphere, and over time the air became crowded with ghosts. When it could no longer hold them, it reset, cleared itself, started anew. Now humanity's era had reached the same weight. She looked up, eyes burning with tears. "If we vanish," she whispered, "what comes next?" The whisper answered softly, "Whatever remembers you." Éliane smiled faintly, her face illuminated by the mist. She placed the fossil on the ground, pressing her palm over it. "Then let this be the last time," she said. "Let this breath belong to all of us." She inhaled deeply, one final, defiant breath. The mist surged around her, flooding her lungs, filling her with unbearable light. The fossil cracked, splitting open like an egg, releasing a brilliant flash that swept across the valley. For a moment everything stopped. Then the air exhaled. The light faded, and where Éliane had stood, there was only wind. But in that wind, a new sound stirred, faint, gentle, like the flutter of wings. Tiny creatures rose from the soil, their translucent bodies shimmering gold in the dawn. Not insects, not human, something between. Breathing, remembering. The next story. And far above, the whisper of the old world drifted into silence, saying its last words to the newborn sky. We remember.